So, before I start this live, I just want to confess that, well, it's not confession, nothing to be ashamed of, but I was procrastinating this live tonight, which is why I am coming to you live at 10:05. The reason I was procrastinating is because I've had this live bubbling up in me for a while, and I really wanted to go to the shed and do it in the shed because I'm enjoying getting my sexy light. I don't know if you guys have seen any of my shed lives recently, but I get a big old light that blurs out anything. So I'm like, yes. And also I quite enjoy moving around because when I'm doing it here in my dining room, I am stationary, and you guys know I love a little bit of movement. So I wanted to go to the shed. But then I felt like a bit of a dick because Tim is working incredibly hard, and I just didn't want to go and disturb him, you know, and like cause a kerfuffle. And then I was kind of like, I want to go to the shed, but then I just had that kind of classic lizard brain thing of kind of procrastinating and letting yourself procrastinate. So I thought, fuck this shit, I'm just going to do it in the old school way and deliver the value that I want to deliver. And just, yeah, I'm just going to bring it. And then, you know, even if I'm not all dynamic and having my face whited out. So I want to talk to you about something that has been showing up a lot on my inbox recently. So I get quite, excuse me, just get a little blow. I get a lot of inboxes, and it tends to be people inboxing me about sort of business kind of mindset things related to business, or just purely mindset stuff. Could be related to other things in your life, not to do with business. And I'm happy to receive all of those queries. And one that I've been experiencing quite a lot of in the inbox recently, I'm going to use a word that is my word and might not resonate with y'all, but just hear me out first before you think to yourself, well, that's not about me, because it might be, and you might just not know it's about you. And the word is resentment. Resentment, which I don't know what the dictionary definition of, but for me, my emotional home used to be resentment. Sort of 3 years ago, like, I swear I was like quite a lot of the time. And it was where where my bad states would often come back to. I also, basically my two bad states were like a kind of depressive type state, which you guys I've told you a lot about my depression and how I sorted that out with mindset. But also I would have lots of like the you bastards kind of resentful state as well. Can anyone relate to this kind of like but specifically, drop me a 3 if you get into the kind of like state with various people. God, I need a drink now. The resentment has made my throat scratch. So I wouldn't call it anger, but definitely I feel like resentment is when you are cross with someone or something that's gone on, but you do it in quite a kind of passive way. So you are sort of resenting them, but not doing anything about it. So the thing about resentment, I just want to quickly kind of relate it back to business, is that it's a sneaky little fucker. Shell's into it as well. Shell gets a bit of resentment as well. It's a sneaky little fucker, is resentment. It will show up in your life in so many different ways. And you can be resenting your partner for not filling up the dishwasher correctly, or not doing the dishwasher. You could be resenting your children. I mean, Tim and I were discussing earlier how sometimes we find ourselves resenting our 3-year-old for not proactively getting dressed in the morning. It's like, come on, I ain't gonna, well, I don't, my 3-year-old does not dress himself, but, you know, I might fall into resentment over my 5-year-old not, tearing his eyes away from Paw Patrol and getting, being sprightly and getting ready for the day. It's like, that ain't gonna happen. So the resentment is futile. You could resent a client, for being mean to you on inbox and kind of getting personal with you. You could resent, someone who cut you up in the motorway. You could resent a colleague who didn't say hello to you, despite the fact that, you thought you were a friend. And so many different ways and people and things that you can resent. The reason that I dishwasher resentment issues. I'm going to come back to the dishwasher in a bit because it proves the point for me that I'm trying to make. But the reason that I want to sell you on this idea that resentment is something that you should banish from your life. I know it sounds extreme, but hear me out. And I wouldn't say I've completely banished it, but I am hunting that shit down. And it came up for me as a result of my other personal development, my kind of wanting to be a better leader, which was a work thing. From there, I was able to work on my resentment. I'll come back to that story in a sec. But the reason I want to impress upon you the urgent need for you to drop resentment in your life and in your business is because, dude, that shit will poison you. Nelson Mandela, probably one of my top 3 quotes of all time, mindset quotes. Nelson Mandela said, resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemies. You are only poisoning yourself, and sometimes the people who you love around you, if it's them you're resenting. Because the nature of resentment is you are choosing to stay in resentment instead of doing something about it. And that for me, in fact, you know what? I'm going to go, right, let's have a look. Define resentment. Because anger is a bit different, isn't it? Anger is when you kind of go for it. You express your pain, and you do it in this kind of very active way. But for me, resentment is much more passive, and that's why it will poison you, because it stays in your body. And a poisoned body is not a body that can be your best in business. And I believe this passionately. I'm not trying to make some tenuous link between resentment over the dishwasher not being filled up correctly and your business. They are directly related, I promise you. If you go into resentment with your partner for not filling up the dishwasher correctly, and that resentment stays in your body because you don't address it or you don't drop it, and that stays in your body for 2.5 hours, come on, ladies and gents, who of you is like an Olympic marathon runner of resentment? Like, come on, let's have confession time. We're on the group now, it's not my page, let's have a confession. Who has stayed in resentment for over a day? Me, definitely me. I have definitely stayed in resentment for over a day. I remember when I was a teenager going to the Lake District with my parents, and I remember staying in resentment with them. I mean, I was a teenager, so you'd probably let me off, but staying in resentment with them for over 2 days. I mean, it was in a sulk with them for more than 2 days. So let's have a look. Definition of resentment: bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. Okay, so it doesn't refer to like whether you're active or not, because I'm thinking resentment is sort of necessarily passive. I keep it inside you. Okay, well, I won't delve anymore, but this is what I want to sort of impress upon you tonight. There is a way, as well as just dropping out of your life those people who make you go into resentment, there is a way that you can drop resentment. So in other words, you don't have to drop the people, you can drop the resentment. So, I mean, you can drop the people as well if they're sufficiently toxic. But the reason this point is particularly important is because, dude, you can't drop your clients. Well, you can. No, sorry. Of course you can drop clients. You absolutely can. But you can't drop them all. And there are some states that I think we get into where we feel like bludgeoning every single person that we met today. And if you are going to bludgeon every single one of your clients because you're in a bad state, I'm not saying this is what you do, but my point is that we have to, I would suggest, if we want to seek emotional freedom, which will allow us to show up as our best self in our business, we have to seek the tool of being able to drop resentment. So I want to talk to you guys about that tonight. And I have a very simple formula for dropping resentment. So just a little story about me. So I grew up in a household where, like, I'm not going into details particularly, but it's super British, you know, like, things weren't kind of, there wasn't much sort of like we spoke a lot and talked and debated and very kind of, you know, loving and everything, but it was very British. So there were a lot of things that went unsaid. So interestingly, Tim, I don't know whether you guys would guess this, but Tim comes from the complete opposite. So his mom, she's kind of Welsh in origin, very South African, but she is, I think of her as kind of being more Italian, Tim's mum Glynis. So she's really kind of, it lets it all hang out, very vocal, like, you know, if anything ever happens in the family, you know, it's very much kind of spoken about and everything. I'm not saying resentment doesn't exist, I'm sure it does, but it's like, it's more kind of out. So I grew up in this really British environment. So my default, and what I have done with that, forgetting about, you know, my past, but what I have done with that in my recent past is that I have then, when I feel bad about a situation, or sort of 3 years ago, when I felt bad about a situation, oh dear God, I would hold that shit in till my dad. I would have it every which way. I would cling on to the pain of what this person had made me feel. And yet I would do absolutely nothing about it. So I had no consciousness around this. I'd literally be sitting there like, but not in no way owning it. Absolutely not going to address it with them. Not going to drop the resentment. So I was having, kind of weirdly, in a messed up way, I was having my cake and eating it. I mean, it wasn't good for me. Obviously, it was poisoning the fuck out of me, but I was kind of, it's a similar thing to bitching, actually. Bitching is a different vibe, but it's like you get to talk about it and bond with your friends over it, over someone else who screwed you over, whatever. You get to slag them off, but actually you don't get to do anything. You're not going to do anything about it. And so you hold the poison within you, potentially damage relationships, and take no action. So when I came into my personal development journey, I had my epiphany sort of 2.5 years ago, and it sent me into this kind of wild peak state where I was, you know, reaching out for any education around mindset I could. I was going wild. I was like being crazily productive. I had some lows, undoubtedly. In fact, the lows were kind of almost kind of worse because I'd seen the light now and see what my brain could be. But I quickly made an explicit goal, which was I wanted to become an amazing leader at Skin Viva. And so I started on my journey with that. And I started to break down some of the procrastination that I was doing, because I was procrastinating kind of the doing the things that I needed to do at the level, like strategy and all the rest of it. Started to break that down, and that was going really, really well. And about a year later, something like that, I was talking to Maria, my coach, and I said to her, Maria, I'm really in resentment over this particular issue. I can't remember the specifics. But let's just say, for example, let's use a real example. So let's say that you're in resentment over the fact that your partner doesn't load the dishwasher, for example. So if you are in resentment over the fact that your partner is not loading the dishwasher, and I'm saying that you're kind of having your cake and eating it in a kind of weird way, although obviously no one's happy about this situation because it's poisoning you. I told Maria about it, and she said, dude, you have 2 choices. You actually have 3 choices. The first choice is what you are doing now, which is not addressing it, and you are not, you are holding that pain within you and not addressing it. So you're just in pain. The second 2 choices are what I will call the red pill and the blue pill, to quote the Matrix. So the red pill, these are the only 2 choices that you should do with resentment, or else you are lying to yourself and poisoning yourself. What you need to do is, you need to choose the red pill, which is that you take action. And you actually decide to address this with the person or the thing that you are in resentment over. So for example, you might say, right, a husband, you know, wife, whatever, I'd like to have a chat with you about the fact that, you know, about the dishwasher. The fact that you are not loading the dishwasher. And but there's a very, very crucial step with this. You need to get in a good state first of all. Do not do it from a place of anger, or else you will screw yourself, because they will be like, oh, you know, you nag or whatever it is, and it'll get into a big fight. So you have to get yourself into an empathic state or empathetic state where you have to get yourself into a state where you just get, you know, do a dance, whatever it might be, put your shoulders back, you know, do the bend and snap from Legally Blonde. Whatever it is, get yourself into a good state using your physiology, your body. And then approach them and address it from that point of view of you're with them, you're working with them, you're not against them. And just explain to them, explain, you know, what's been happening and the impact it's had on you. You know, I'm not saying you like dramatize it up or anything. I'm just saying, you say, it'd be great if we could do the dishwasher together around this time, because then what I find is if it doesn't get done, if we don't do it together, I tend to find that the night it sort of impacts on the rest of the night. So it'd be super, you know, it'd be great if you could help me with that. You know, I don't know whether that's the right way of doing it, but you get yourself in a good state. And the second option that you have within the blue pill now, the third option, I guess, is that you lay it down. Lay down your resentment. You can do that in whatever the circumstances. You are in control. You need to connect with the negative, with the poisoning this is having on you. And you need to lay it, or you can choose to lay it down. You only, in my opinion, have these two choices, the red pill and the blue pill. If you just choose to do what you're doing at the moment, which is continuing to resent them, you're just poisoning yourself, and you're never going to show up as your best self for your business. So if you choose the blue pill, you can lay that down. Now, I want to say something about laying it down, because I got this from Maria taught me it, but it was reinforced by a book by Susan David called Emotional Agility. And she's a psychologist. I think she's South African as well, but she lives in America. And she told the story about someone who came to see her in therapy. And she came and she was in major resentment about her husband, because every night the husband would come home and he would get his coat, kind of seems a bit weird, but he'd get his coat and he'd just drop it and he wouldn't put it on the hook. And I have to say, when I first heard this story, I'm a bit like, yeah, you should drop him. But because it does seem like really unreasonable. And Susan David kind of was giving this lady therapy, and she was saying to her, basically, you know, I think she attempted to address it with him, actually. I think she'd attempted the red pill. And she'd been doing this for years or whatever. And Susan basically liaised with this woman and she said, is there a sanction that you want to put on him? Because of course you could put boundaries down. That could be part of your red pill action, putting a boundary down. Love and boundaries, good relationships are all made of love and boundaries. You could address it with him through love and or through boundaries. But what she discovered with this woman is that actually the woman didn't want to impose a sanction on her husband. She wasn't going to, divorce him because of this coat drop. And she realised actually what happened was she came to a kind of peace with it. She realised that she asked herself something along the lines of that amazing question that I asked, which is, what am I making it mean? She was making it mean that he was disregarding her. And in actual fact, he wasn't. It was just kind of the way he was, and it was never going to change. And if she wanted to have peace in her life and in her relationship, she could continue to kind of hammer that point and, really put some sanctions down. I don't know, like give him an ultimatum or something. Or she could choose to drop it. And if you drop it, you must, this is crucial, you must do it from a place of you being the empowered one. You are the one who is choosing to drop it, or however you want. Let's call it set down. You are setting down the resentment. You are saying, right, I see you, resentment, and I see you, bad thing that my husband is doing, not, loading the dishwasher or whatever. And I'm choosing to lay you down. And I am doing that from a place of power. And crucially, this is crucial, I am doing that because it doesn't serve me. And this is crucial because the nature of resentment is that you are thinking about yourself, which is kind of fair enough. You're in your own head. You're thinking about a loss. This person who you are resenting you feel they are taking something away from you by not loading the dishwasher, or by, you know, dropping their coat without putting it on the peg. And so when you are in a state of loss, it's going to be incredibly hard to argue with your lizard brain that you're just going to set aside this loss, because actually what your lizard brain is then going to tell you, if you are going to say, right, no, I'm going into a peaceful place, I'm just going to accept that my husband drops his coat and doesn't put it on the peg. Your lizard brain won't accept that, because your lizard brain will tell you someone is taking the piss out of you here. There's an injustice. And lizard brain doesn't accept injustice, basically. And there's a reason for that. You know, of course, we need justice to some extent. But it isn't a justice. There is no justice. If you carry on staying in resentment, which is what your lizard brain will tell you to do because it's trying to make you to survive, the amygdala at the base of your brain is trying to get you to survive. If you stay in resentment in pursuit of some bollock sense of justice, which is bullshit anyway, and isn't, you know, the world isn't as simple as that, let's face it. If you carry on in pursuit of that, you will lose. You will lose. You'll lose your peace of mind. You'll lose, you know, there will be chips taken off your relationship. You will not be able to show up as best you can for the world, your clients, your children, whoever. There's no, like, I'm talking to you now, and if I had been, oh God, I'm a bit blurry. Sorry, is that better? No, that's a bit better. If I had been in resentment about something that happened, you know, a dishwasher incident or something that happened earlier in the night, I wouldn't be able to serve you now. No way. And I know you guys might not be doing Mindset Facebook Lives, but you guys need to, of an evening, do marketing. And if you, for example, you might need to do Facebook posts for your Facebook page. And if you have gone into resentment with your partner or another client who has been mean to you online, if you go into resentment and stay in resentment, girlfriend, or boyfriend, you're just poisoning yourself. You're poisoning yourself. You're not going to be able to show up for your business as well. It's as simple as that. You will lose. Your lizard brain is telling you that you are losing this justice. It's an injustice. But actually, by staying in resentment, you are causing injustice on yourself. You are losing. So that's my point about resentment. And I learned that so viscerally a few times when I stayed in resentment too long, even after I'd had that advice from Maria. And I've realized, you know, it just, I know emotionally, not just in my head, I know it doesn't serve me. So what I do is first of all, I make this kind of, I check myself and I say, right, I'm in resentment. So I am not, you know, I'm not choosing the red pill or the blue pill. I'm choosing option number one, which is a terrible option. So I raise my consciousness around that first of all. And the lizard brain starts to come in and it's like, no, but they've screwed you. They're the bad ones. You need to resent them. And the lizard brain starts to come in like that. And you go, okay. So, okay, lizard brain, I see you. I call that part of my lizard brain my petulant teenager. And the petulant teenager always wants to be right. And in actual fact, I'll share a great little hack that I did on myself actually quite recently. So back in the day, like a couple of years ago when I used to be in resentment before I learned this amazing lesson, I used to have this habit, the petulant teenager, which is my bad persona, I had this habit of schooling people, talking to myself and schooling people in the car on the way into work. So I would be resenting people and talking and going, what you want to realize is, and I'd be kind of like giving them all these stingers. In fact, drop me another 3 if you do this as well, where you're like, and you know, you're talking to this imaginary person and kind of telling them how it really is. And actually, you know, you're still feeling bad. You're kind of feeling good, but you're, because you've got one over on them in this imaginary world, but you're schooling them. So I used to do this a lot, and I banned it basically. And then what happened recently was I found myself doing it again, and I made a new rule, and this rule has worked for me. I am not allowed to do this kind of talking to myself, schooling this imaginary person, unless I have already booked in the diary the red pill, which is I have booked to go and see them and talk about this thing I'm resenting. So you should not be doing this kind of thing unless you decided to take the red pill or to lay it down the blue pill. And so I was just checking in and seeing whether anyone else does that kind of weird talking to yourself schooling thing. So that's a little hack that I do with myself. But another thing about resentment that you must admit, and I might do another video on this another time, because it's quite a good little concept to kind of get your head around, is you must admit that when you are in resentment, that you are getting your needs met. So we never do anything that's not meeting our needs, but we can have our needs met in a destructive way. So for example, I think I said this the other night, violence is an example of meeting your needs in a destructive way, because you are getting certainty, because you're getting significance, you are the top dog. If you are, beating on someone else, you are having your need for variety met, because, violence is always, keeping things fresh. You are feeling, that you almost kind of, sometimes when people are in gangs and things like that, they have love and connection because they're in a gang. So violence meets our need, but in a destructive way. And it's the same with resentment, obviously not quite as bad. I don't know whether you guys ever have this, but I sometimes go into what I have referred to as the hero victim kind of, let me draw a diagram for you. So it's like a loop. So if you guys imagine, oh God, I haven't even done that right. Bear with. So if you imagine, sorry, this is an appalling drawing. If you imagine a figure of 8 here, and what I find is that often, oh God, that's backwards, isn't it? What I find is that often, who's messaging me? You go between hero and victim. Sorry, you can't read that. And this is what I often find in resentment, is that I will loop between feeling like I am a victim and then feeling like I'm the hero. So I'll be like, oh, I'm such a victim. They never load the dishwasher, and, it's always Muggins who has to load the dishwasher. But I'm such a hero because I always load the dishwasher and I keep everything together and I load it really, really well. And I'm such a hero. I always solve everyone else's problems. But, I'm such a victim. And I don't know whether you guys relate to this. It's this kind of looping between the two. And the point is, you are getting your needs met through this loop, because it's almost like being on a roller coaster. You are kind of like getting your need for variety met, and you are feeling like the complete, the mega hero, and also you're feeling a bit certain because you're like, oh, poor me, I'm the victim. So just something to watch out for. But I'll just get back to my page. So what I want to leave you with one final thought around resentment, which is that if we accept that resentment is poisoning us, and if we accept that it means we won't be able to show up for our business as well, because we'll be like this in a corner, rocking backwards and forwards with the pain and just the incredulity that anyone would dare to treat us like that. If we are doing that, and if when we are in resentment, we are finding it incredibly hard to get out of that resentment because actually our needs are being met by it, I'll leave you with 2 little tips, which you might have heard me say before, but they have completely changed my life, particularly the first one. The first one is to ask yourself this question: what am I making it mean? And the nature of that question suggests, by its very nature, that you are doing it to yourself. And by admitting that out loud, you loosen up your thoughts around the resentment. So if you're saying, oh, he never loads the dishwasher, then and yet you're staying in the resentment, doing nothing about it, not taking the red or the blue pill, by saying, what am I making it mean? You will admit to yourself that actually you are making it mean that, for example, your partner is making you feel insignificant, that you are not equal in this relationship, and that you're having to do all the legwork. That's what you're making it mean. Then you need to ask yourself, is that true? Is that really true? Or actually, are you part of a sick little system whereby you're doing the dishwasher because actually you hate the way he does the dishwasher. And if you're really honest with yourself, you'd rather just get it done because you'll just get it done better. So you're having your need for certainty met. And if you admit that to yourself and say, what am I making it mean? What else could it mean? Is it true? And really you'll challenge yourself. In that moment, you will feel free because you will think to yourself, okay, it's me. I'm part of this. I'm part of this as well. And if you admit to yourself that you are part of the thing that has caused your resentment, then you are so much more likely to want to take the red pill or the blue pill. That is, to do something about it from a good state, to challenge this person, in a constructive way, or to lay it down. And the second little hack that I do sometimes if I'm still refusing to get out of this resentment, and I still have this sense that if I get out of the resentment, that an injustice will have taken place, I ask myself, what's in it for me to get out of this resentment now? What's in it for me? And what's beautiful about that is it's nice little kind of feels a little bit selfish. So when your lizard brain is wanting you to, be selfish, it kind of meets that need. What's in it for me? And then you start to think, oh, do you know what? I would quite like to go to bed in peace tonight. I don't want to go to bed and, be, not having a cuddle or whatever because I'm in resentment over my partner not doing the dishwasher. Or I would quite like to go to bed, not feeling like the world is like I do not have any faith in human nature because someone was mean to me online. I would like to walk in peace. I would like to feel a sense of emotional freedom, and I would like to have given that to myself. So if you ask those two questions, what am I making it mean? Is that true? And challenge yourself. And the second thing is, what's in it for me to come out of this bad state now? Honestly, I have I don't know what percentage of success rate, but it's so much higher. It's like 95% or something if you put those two questions together. And if that doesn't work, please let these Nelson Mandela's thoughts and quote run through your mind. Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemies. It won't. It will kill you, and it will not kill your business, but it will certainly poison the waters. You need to be filling your business up with love and boundaries and abundance, and resentment is the opposite of that. All right, my darlings, I will leave you to it. I'll go and read these comments afterwards now because it's quite late and I will let you go to bed. I hope you go to bed in peace. Take care.